Great. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the November business meeting of the Council on Post-Secondary Education. As a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed to YouTube for the general public. Council members must have their audio and video on to participate in the meeting, but please keep your microphone muted unless you're talking. Heather, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Dr. Mohammed Babar.
Yes.
Mr. Ronald Beal. I haven't seen him this morning. Mr. Colby Burks.
Here and ready for a great meeting.
Woohoo! Chair Benjamin Brandsetter.
Here.
Mr. Eric Ferris.
I'm here.
Vice Chair Kimberly Halbar.
Here.
Miss Lori Harper.
Here.
Okay. Mr. Lucas Menzer.
Here.
Miss Donna Moore. Miss Christy Nelson.
Here.
Mr. Richard Nelson.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. Miss Vijay Ravichandran. Dr. Robert Stack.
Here.
Mr. Kevin Weaver.
Here.
Miss Carol Wright.
Here.
And Commissioner Jason Glass. I think he'll be joining us later. If he's on.
I'm on.
Oh, you are on. Okay, great. Glad to have you. All right. You have quorum and you may begin your meeting.
Thank you, Heather. Dr. Mohammed Babar was recently appointed to the council, and this morning, Franklin County Judge Executive Houston Wells is back with us today virtually to administer his oath of office. Judge Wells, I'll turn it over to you for the oath.
Okay. Dr. Mabar, I don't see you. However, if you would raise your right hand and then answer to the oath of office. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky so long as you continue as citizen thereof, and that you will faithfully execute to the best of your ability the office of member of the Council on Post-Secondary Education according to law? And do you further solemnly swear that since the adoption of the present Constitution, you being a citizen of this state have not fought a duel with deadly weapons within the state nor out of it, nor have you sent or accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons, nor have you acted as second in carrying a challenge, nor aided or assisted any person thus offending, so help you God?
I do. I do.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I appreciate all of you allowing me to do this. It is an honor. And everybody, please stay safe and wear your mask. And Heather, if you need any other any signed document, just let us know and we'll take care of that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you all. God bless.
Judge Wells, thank you for being back with us this morning and performing that oath for us. The minutes from our September 14th and 15th council meetings are in your materials. Are there any objections to those as presented? If none, they're approved as distributed. President Thompson, we're going to move on to item 4 on our agenda. Would you like to give your report, please?
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Brandstetter and board. It's good to see everyone. It's getting close to the end of the year. Election is over, we think, and we're ready to start 2021. As I told someone earlier, I'll be a year older, but I'm sure I won't feel that way. I am clearly happy to be here with you this morning. Several things to discuss. I'll try to make it fast. We just got information a week or so ago that we will not be having any cuts in higher education. We want to thank the governor for that, and CPE and the governor's office and budget director John Hicks have been talking for a while, and it looks like we'll get 20 million more for higher education to offset some of the costs we've had with PPE and other COVID related 19 inputs, if you want to call it that we've had to spend, lost revenue and so on. So I do want to thank Budget Director Hicks and the governor's office for working with us to make that happen. Also, the Biden administration as it comes in, we're looking at, I'm talking nationally with a lot of folk that look like me, as well as some connections we have deep in DC, that says he will be focused on higher education. How he's going to be focused on it, what it looks like early is that he'll be looking at making sure there's access for everybody who wants to go to higher ed. If you're making under 125,000, I think they're looking at how to make that as free as possible, focusing on community colleges heavily. But we don't know all the in and outs of that, right, until it happens. But that's the conversation that's happening right now with this transition team. As you know, also, I put into play this year a faculty advisory group to me and CPE, as well as a student advisory group. And we're getting a lot of information. What we wanted to do was try to figure out exactly what was happening in real time during this COVID-related time and even after that, and see if we could start employing what we could at CPE with the powers we have to address that. As you all know, last year, we looked at the issues of mental health even before COVID happened. So we took our strategic funds, as you know, and we really targeted toward those needs and working with our campuses. And we're looking now to see how well those work. But that's an example of what we're going to be doing this time. It looks as if that, and we're finding new information right now during the registration time, it's lagging behind, you know, most campuses and nationally. We think that this is really going to affect people of low income, people of color, those that are historically the most disenfranchised. So we're going to work with our campuses to make sure that we're employing strategies that will start to address that. You may also remember last year early, we noticed that the FAFSA numbers were down after we went into COVID-related NTI and other areas where our counselors in our P12 didn't have a chance to work directly with these students. So CPE really took charge, along working with our partners at KDE, Kia, Pritchard, the Lieutenant Governor's office, and really did an all-out blitz on FAFSA, trying to get people to fill it out. And in fact, it worked. We even employed some old school stuff like snail mail, which in some cases really got to people that had the digital divide even grow wider for them. And because of that, our enrollment in Kentucky looked better than it did nationally. And I think you'll hear an enrollment report later on. The item that I think we have to be more cognizant about as a council, I mean, obviously we're a coordinating board, but what are those things that we can do to make sure that we're accomplishing some of the items we need to? It looks early. Last year, as you all know, one of the strategies we looked at in order to get to our 60 by 30, we had to really do 4 big things. One is to get more of the college going. People are graduating from high school to go to college. We have worked diligently on that, as you all know, with campaigns. You're seeing some of it's happening now, but that had to be one of the big things we do. Number 2 is to really push student success. You'll see our numbers. That is working. Number 3 was to really get out of state students. We came up with a lower tuition model as well as an MOA targeting the strategies that our particular campuses would need to really reach out to those they could reach out to. And that is working. You'll see some data on that. Our adult learners was the 4th item we had to work on. We've had a 40% loss since 2012. And we did get a grant from Lumina. And to help us to do that, we're really focusing on the Work Ready scholarship, the area in my listening tour we found out only about 3% even know about. So we've gotten an all-out blitz campaign on that. You'll see something with Nappy Roots later on that shows you just one example of what we're doing in that area. So those items we learned from our listening tour and those items that we talked about to get to 60 by 30, each one of those, we've employed direct resources and measuring those, by the way, as we do that. Last week, I had a chance to testify in front of the BR Subcommittee on Education, and along with the KDE and the Workforce Cabinet. Particularly, we talked about some of the successes we had towards 60 by 30, but basically told them that we are working on with our Finance Committee and Board to look at a variety of things we bring to the table. One of the items we know we'll bring to the table is the KSU land grant matching, because they've gotten increased money from the federal government. We'll be working on asset preservation, as well as additional monies to help our COVID-related expenses, along with working on somehow getting some semi-solution, hopefully, to this KERS issue, which will cost our campuses a lot of money, especially our comprehensives, and looking at maintaining the stop loss as well as the hold harmless, because we have several campuses that will fall off that cliff if in fact it goes to zero stop loss and this coming year, and that's what it's slated to do in legislation. So we're working with our performance funding work group in that third year review, and we're discussing all of these pieces, and happy to talk to you a little bit more about that if you want to later on. But we don't know what the recommendations fully are going to be yet, but we're getting close. We did an extra called meeting this month because we felt like we needed an extra meeting. So we have 2 meetings left, and we'll have to have that report in by December 1. So we're working hard on that. We just had our higher education equity symposium, and U of L and CPE obviously did that together. But I will tell you, it was wonderful. I mean, we had lots of attendance to that. We've heard nothing but good things. This was called "The Urgency Is Now." Get no opportunity wasted. We've had featured speakers like Neely Bendapudi, president of U of L, myself, Tia McNair from AAC&U, and over again, we're hearing that these sorts of items we're providing, along with our modules, as long as with our work groups, is in fact having some impact. We're also going to be doing the HB 15 training we've done in 2020. And all board members, both public and private, if you are new, you have to attend, as well as institutional leadership is invited to those. So there's a lot of these items that we're working with the governor and others on to make sure that our board members, and we have trained our new board members here. Once again, folks, happy to have you on board. Speaking engagement, just a few since our last board meeting. We've been trying to get out in the community still during COVID. But, you know, we spoke at Murray, or I spoke at Murray. We spoke at Greater Louisville, Inc., Pritchard Committee, Nostrin Center for Excellence of Education at U of L, Somerset Chamber of Commerce, Kentucky Associations of College of Teacher Education, Bluegrass Tomorrow Leadership Academy. I've done several national seminars like at SHIO and a variety of other places. A lot of ed talks nationally talking about what Kentucky is doing in the area of closing gaps. We're, as you well know, one of the states that are in higher ed that are closing some of those opportunity gaps a little bit faster than other states, and we're proud of that. You're going to hear a little bit about the P20 work that we're doing. This is going gangbusters. We've talked with the governor, lieutenant governor, people in the legislature, and we'll talk once again a little bit more about that later on. Happy to have Amanda and her team aboard doing those. It's good to work with our Commissioner of Education on this at a deep level, as well as Secretary of Education. We will be leading this effort, and on November 17th, we will have a joint press conference, and we'll give you a little more detail about that. There's a whole lot of stuff I could talk about, but for the sake of time, I will not, but I'm happy to answer, Chair, any questions that you may have of me.
Thank you, President Thompson. If any of the council members have any questions or topics, I'll please either raise your hand or use the raise hand button, and I'll try to I'll try to find you. I'm going to kind of flip through my screen here just to make sure I don't miss anybody. But Heather, let me know if I do. And but right now I see everybody still on mute. So President Thompson, thank you very much for that report. I know we're going to come back to you later on for a couple of other items and
Thanks,
go a little
sir.
more detail on a few other things as well. So Commissioner Glass, you are you're next on the agenda. If you could provide there you are.
Thank you, Chair Branstetter and Dr. Thompson. I'll try not to cover this much of the same ground that Dr. Thompson did and be brief. I know that you have a busy day. Just following up on the post-election considerations, one of the major changes that will be coming, assuming nothing dramatic happens in the presidential race over the next few weeks, is that we'll have a new Secretary of Education. And of course, a lot of the work that we do at the Kentucky Department of Education and with higher education intersects with the work at the U.S. Department of Education. So there will be some jockeying politically as to who that person is, but that will have a major impact on work with colleges and universities in the K-12, pre-K-12 system around the country. So we'll be watching that closely and also doing our best to make sure that Kentucky's interests are represented through that. The three major areas that I've been focused on since starting at the Department of Education have been around COVID related matters and supporting schools through that, anti-racism and equity efforts, and supporting schools through potential budget shocks this year and next. So I'll just briefly touch on the three of those. I think we're entering a new phase when it comes to COVID management. We're seeing exponential growth in the number of cases around the state. While I think schools have done a laudable job of containing and controlling COVID within their schools, we are not seeing widespread outbreaks happening in public schools across the state. We have hundreds of thousands of students that are in-person learning, and that's not by accident. We have layers of virus mitigation strategies that have been deployed that are working to keep the virus out, or if the virus enters the school, to keep it contained. So those strategies seem largely to be working, but when our community transmission rates reach the level that we are now, it puts all the more pressure on those virus mitigation defenses at schools and makes it all the more likely that you will eventually have an outbreak happen in a school. The other thing it does is, with this level of community transmission, you start getting a lot of people, staff members, students, teachers quarantine. And when you start reaching large numbers of quarantining happening, it creates operational disruption, especially in many smaller districts where you may have a whole family that ends up having to quarantine. All of them work for the school system. So those things are happening now. I think that we're going to start seeing more schools go into fits and starts in terms of their operation, or have to shut down completely. And unless something happens over the next couple of months where we see these numbers start to fall, and I'm not seeing any evidence that that's going to occur, I think we're going to start seeing more school closures and transition to remote or NTI learning. And I certainly don't want that to happen, but I think that we are entering a new phase when it comes to combating COVID. Shifting on the anti-racism and equity front, Dr. Thompson and the rest of the members of the Kentucky State Board of Education passed a resolution really making this a priority for me right out of the gate. One of the efforts, tangible efforts that we've made in that regard, is hiring a deputy commissioner and chief equity officer with Dr. Thomas Woods Tucker, tremendous talent, former national superintendent of the year. He'll be coordinating much of that work. And our first effort around that is to do a scan and a review of the practices that we have in place in the state and think about how we can build upon those. So it's a seek first to understand frame that we're taking into this work around anti-racism and equity. And so more on that to come. Dr. Thompson mentioned that we all got good news around budget reductions for this year, that we're not going to have to execute those 8% cuts that were planned. That's a huge relief. Mid-year budget cuts are never easy, but we're not out of the woods. We have to think about what happens next year with the next budget cycle. We'll all be paying attention to tax collections and how those are looking, and also paying attention to what happens in Washington when it comes to any further aid packages and what those may look like to help offset some of the losses that the state may experience when it comes to COVID economic disruption. So those have been my three focus areas: supporting districts through COVID, anti-racism and equity, and supporting districts through potential budget shocks. We're not out of the woods on any of those by any stretch, but we're making progress on all three of them. And then looking ahead, I'm excited also to follow up on what Dr. Thompson said around this work around the PK-20 continuum effort and how we can think about supporting more of our students leaving high school and entering some form of higher education and workforce training. It's a benefit to all of us if we can have more students interacting with higher education, graduating with skills that are can help change and support the workforce. We saw just yesterday the Fed talking about that the economy had fundamentally changed and that the forces of automation, globalization were accelerated because of COVID, and that's going to change the kinds of jobs that are ahead. And it's going to have a profound impact, already has had a profound impact on Kentucky's economy that's largely built on agriculture and light manufacturing. So when those kinds of jobs can easily be replaced by machines or sent overseas, we've got serious work to do. So I'm excited about that coordinating effort. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn things back over to you, and thanks for the time, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Glass. Does anybody have any questions for him while he's still with us? And hopefully you can stick around. I think that's very important. I do want to recognize Vidya. She has joined us, so just let the minutes show that she is at our meeting today. Next item is item number 6, Academic and Strategic Initiatives Committee Report and Actions. Lori Harper is chair of the committee. I'll turn it over to you to give the Academic and Strategic Initiatives Committee report and recommendations.
Thank you, Chair Brandstetter. The Academic and Strategic Initiatives Committee met on October 20th, and the report is in your materials. We covered several items at our meeting. We received an update on the development of the revised college readiness indicators that are more closely aligned with those being considered in our P12 system. Due to the continuing pandemic, the same indicators are going to be used for this academic year that will be used for 21-22 years. However, the readiness indicators for 22-23 academic year are being reviewed, and we expect to have those ready for recommendations at the council's meeting in the spring. If you have any questions on this item, Amanda Ellis, our Associate VP of P20 Policy and Programs, is available to respond to any of those questions. Okay, if not, we also heard about CPE's new Student Success Network, which is a comprehensive strategy to increase engagement and connections among faculty, staff, and students in support of improved learning outcomes and increased college completion. One example of this is CPE's new virtual weekly sessions called Touch Base Tuesdays, which is designed to bring faculty and others together to network, discuss barriers to student success, and explore strategies to improve teaching and learning. The regular sessions allow campuses to learn and share best practices on the topics of choice. They also provide CPE with a clearer on-the-ground view of how the pandemic has shaped teaching and learning and explore opportunities for state-level support. Ms. Melissa Bell is available to provide more information about CPE's new Student Success Network. Are there any questions for Ms. Bell? Okay. Also, at this meeting, we received an up-close look at our newest data available on CPE's rapidly growing Kentucky Postsecondary Interactive Data Portal. The CPE Data Portal is designed to be a public-facing information an accountability tool for board members, legislators, media, campus officials, and others to more deeply understand how Kentucky's post-secondary system is performing. Data is available in any number of areas, and it's available by campus, by educational sector, by demographic group, and often by academic program. The portal includes a high-level dashboard that tracks the 10-12 strategy agenda performance metrics. It also includes a large range of other dashboards in areas such as dual credit, enrollment, diversity, financial aid, and others. CPE staff walked us through the new transfer dashboard, which not only shows us the number of students who transferred from second year to four-year campuses, but also the retention and graduation rates of those transfers and their GPAs, transfer numbers by major, and many, many more kind of slice and dice. If you've not yet explored this interactive data portal, I really recommend that you take a few minutes and see the type of data that has been made widely available over this last year. The link to the portal is in our onboard agenda. So I would encourage you, it was amazing how many different ways you can slice or dice and look, and what a great tool it is, not only for us as board members, but also the institutions. It gives them a great look at what's going on. Finally, we were given the good news that the work is done towards a solid P20 partnership is finally coming together. President Thompson has shared on numerous occasions with the board, CPE's student success and college completion goals cannot be achieved without more alignment and collaboration between our education sectors, particularly between P12 and higher education. Strengthening and diversifying our teacher corps, improving college readiness, and increasing our on-to-college rates will be essential to the success of the post-secondary system and achievement of our 60 by 30 goal. I want to commend President Thompson for leading his effort to bring all key players to the table to build more alignment in our Kentucky educational system. At this time, I'd like to ask CPE's Amanda Ellis to present more detailed look at the work as well as the resolution that the committee has approved for recommendation today. Turn it over to Ms. Amanda Ellis.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. And I believe Heather is going to share the draft of the resolution. We just say draft because the governor's office will put it on the final official paper before it is shared at the public announcement for next week. We are so excited about this opportunity. I know that Dr. Thompson has been talking about this and pushing this. And when you have three agencies, large agencies, and other education partners coming together, sometimes that can be herding cats, but we have done it. And we are moving forward and are beyond excited for the support and the collaborative efforts and just the goodwill around the need, the awareness and the need of what we need to do collectively to move this work forward. And I just want to share just briefly with you some of the components of the resolution of what will be shared next week. And we did share this with the ASI committee to get any feedback, but it really does support the work that CPE has been pushing. This was an effort absolutely led by CPE and Dr. Thompson to really get this moving. And we are so grateful, like I said, for Commissioner Glass being so collaborative, the Lieutenant Governor, the governor's very interested, and we have many other partners, legislators who are very encouraged by this this intentional effort. So if you notice on the resolution, what it's going to bring up is that we're committed to equitable access to high quality education for all students. We know that there are a lack of post-secondary credentials, and this is just telling you what you already know, but it is codified in this resolution of what we're committing to do. That too few of our high school graduates are transitioning to college, that we have. We know that early post-secondary opportunities, which we talk a lot about dual credit, but that's one example of what that can do to lower cost and engage our students early on into a post-secondary environment. We know that they need advising and mentoring. Many of these things that you all have talked about, we're putting into action. The teachers and leaders need access to high quality, innovative training and ongoing professional development to prepare students so that we have a strong teacher workforce. And then you will recognize this, that we want to meet our goal of the 60 by 30, the 60% with a degree or credential by 2030. And we want to exceed the goal to ultimately have a high skilled workforce in Kentucky. And so you'll see that what we are doing and the now therefore it be resolved that our three leaders are coming together to co-lead the Commonwealth Education Continuum Advisory Council. So it will be co-led by Dr. Thompson, Dr. Glass, and Lieutenant Governor Coleman. And so this will be announced on Tuesday, the 17th at, I believe, 10:30. The governor is going to kick it off, and Dr. Thompson will be speaking. Dr. Glass will be speaking, of course, the Lieutenant Governor, talking about the efforts around this, the importance of the pipeline, the collaboration around this work, and to really publicly commit to working together. This occurred years ago, as Dr. Thompson has told you, with the P16 Council. He was a part of that. All those efforts were absolutely right. But what is different this time is that we really wanted to have teeth and have very clear deliverables of what we would like to do with this advisory. There's approximately 25 members that we hope to confirm very soon that represent workforce, higher ed, students in the P12 setting, students in post-secondary, teacher, principal, superintendent, the KWIB, legislators, a member obviously of the CPE, member of the KBE. So it's a collective body that's going to be looking at specifically in this part of the pipeline. We know that P20 is a huge educational pipeline, but we're going to start with around the transition from high school into post-secondary opportunities, and how do we improve and strengthen that part of the pipeline to help students transfer, make them aware of what's available, give access to what is available, give experiences, and really work to strengthen these components around a stronger teacher workforce, around transitions and post-secondary experiences, and ultimately even just unified communication. That sounds like low-hanging fruit, but when you have many organizations that promote the same type of thing, really bringing those together must be strategic and intentional. And so that's what we're going to be looking at. We don't have the clear specific deliverables yet because we want to give autonomy to the advisory to clarify exactly those first year goals. But we are beyond excited about this. So we'll do a public announcement on the 17th. Mid-December, we will announce, hopefully the members will have those confirmed by then. All three of our leaders obviously will have input on filling the membership of the education continuum. And then we will meet, our first meeting is scheduled now for January 27th from 1 to 3. We are very excited about this to get this started. We're working together and really starting to get our thoughts together on the resources that we would need, and in those buckets of work around workforce transition and communication about the folks that would really need to be at the table to help support this work. And we're really looking forward to moving it forward. And as Dr. Thompson said, it's full steam ahead. And I am extremely grateful for three very strong leaders who have a common commitment to excellence for Kentucky. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions about the resolution or any of our work thus far, or Dr. Thompson, I'm sure, or Dr. Glass really could answer. We've been working together to get this moving. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. The resolution for approval is in our board materials. The ASI committee has reviewed and approved it. And Chair Brandstedler, I'll turn them back over to you and ask the council to give their final approval.
All right. Thank you, Lori, and thank you, Amanda. On behalf of the committee, Ms. Harper has presented the Commonwealth Education Continuum Resolution for approval. May I have a motion to accept the committee's recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Maybe that's one more reason why we don't.
I had a motion by Mr. Weaver, a second I'll give that to Dr. Stat. And all those, are there any further discussion on this topic before we? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you for everyone who has been working on this, especially ASI committee and CP staff. This is going to be has a potential to do some really good work over the course of the next couple of years. KB is expected to take action on this joint resolution at its next meeting, and as previously stated, announcement from the governor's office is tentatively scheduled for November 17th. And Heather will keep us informed as that gets finalized. So thanks for everybody's effort on that. Thank you, Lori, for the ASI committee report. Next, we're going to go to Finance Committee. And Finance Committee met on October 20th, and the report is in your materials. At the meeting, we received revenue and use report updates on special use fees, asset preservation fees, and agency bond fees. The details of those reports will not be covered in today's meeting, but can be found in that committee's archive meeting materials and on board or on the CPU's website. We also discussed potential revisions that may be made to the asset preservation fee policy. CP staff and campus chief budget officers are finalizing those proposed revisions. We expect to review those at our next meeting and present them for approval at the January council meeting. Finally, we also received an overview of the performance funding discussions from the September and October meetings of the Postsecondary Education Working Group. The group has 2 more meetings on the books, and that group is planning to have a formal recommendation to present to the legislature before the end of the year. The committee also reviewed and approved 2 interim capital projects, both at the University of Louisville. The first is an $18.7 million project to renovate and update the GB Speed School of Engineering building, and the details of the project are in your materials. It is an asset preservation project previously approved by the latest CPE budget recommendation, but was not included in the enacted 2020-2021 state budget. The project is fully financed through agency funds and does not require any debt financing. The second project is an $8 million project to renovate Medical Tower 55A, with 9th floor being converted to a vivarium, and the 8th floor provided the mechanical support for that vivarium. The project would advance the institution's core HB1 mission to be a premier nationally recognized metropolitan research university, and is being fully funded by a federal grant from the National Institutes of Health. Are there any questions on the 2 interim capital projects recommended for approval by the Finance Committee? If none, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Mr. Ferris, and I didn't catch the second. So Heather, if you could just make a note of that. Any further discussion on this?
I believe I heard Carol.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
That one. We'll give that one to Carol. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. All right, motion carries. Thank you. Before we move on to the next report, Murray State University has notified CPE staff of an interim capital project that they want to begin work on before our next scheduled council meeting. Their board will not review it for approval until December 4th, 2020, and thus it will not be appropriate for us to review it today. However, it is being requested that the council delegate the final review and approval of the project to the Finance Committee so it can take action at its December 15th meeting in the LRC Capital Projects and Bond Oversight Committee to take action at its December 17th meeting. The project is to replace the HVAC system and repair ductwork at the Levitt Auditorium. It has a total scope of $2 million, of which $600,000 would come from the asset preservation fee revenue, and the remaining to come from agency funds. If there are no objections to that request, may I have a motion to delegate the final review and action of this Murray State University interim capital project to the Finance Committee on behalf of the full council?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this topic? All those in favor, aye.
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 All right. All those opposed? All right. Thank you very much. Next item is item 8, the Executive Committee report. The Executive Committee has continued to meet monthly, and our discussions have centered on the performance funding working group discussions and the continued work on the campuses, especially in the areas of pandemic planning. We've also discussed how to proceed with President Thompson's performance evaluation this year. Because the council just amended his contract earlier this year to remove the incentive compensation portion as well to extend his contract to 2023, the Executive Committee has decided to keep this year's review in-house and resume the broader review process that includes a survey of campus leadership, legislators, staff, and others next year. We've asked President Thompson to provide a self-evaluation, which will be distributed to all council members. The Executive Committee will meet with President Thompson on December 3rd to discuss this in further detail. Are there any other questions on that before we move on? All right, thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to make a few committee appointments mainly for our new council members. Eric Ferris, I'd like to nominate him to the Finance Committee. Mahaba Babar to the Academic and Strategic Initiatives Committee, as well as Kevin Weaver to the Academic and Strategic Initiatives Committee, and Richard Nelson to the Nominating Committee. All right. Item 9 is our Council on Equal Opportunities report. Dr. Statt, I'm going to turn this over to you for the report on the Council on Equal Opportunities to give that report and corresponding recommendations.
Thank you, Chair Branstetter. The Committee on Equal Opportunities met on October 26th, and the report is in your materials. Right now, I'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to Don Offit for putting this information together that I'm about to give. First bullet, you might remember that the results of the 2019 Diversity Plan Evaluation reports were shared at our June council meeting. All KCTCS schools and the majority of the four-year universities met the minimum score required. Eastern Kentucky was the exception, and the result of that was being ineligible to offer new academic programs. Since then, EKU staff have developed a performance improvement plan that identified specific strategies and resources dedicated to addressing the deficiencies identified in the review. The strategies included a new leadership structure to lead the process, redirecting the proper level of support to ensure satisfactory engagement on a continual basis, and implementing a better data collection and reporting system. The CEO reviewed and discussed these strategies, found them satisfactory, and approved their improvement plan of action. Get my tongue twisted here. As a result, EKU has been granted an exception and is again eligible to apply for new academic programs. Additionally, EKU and 3 of the two-year colleges submitted qualitative strategy revisions for their diversity plans. These schools were both the Ashland and Big Sandy Community and Technical Colleges and Somerset Community College, and all 4 submissions were reviewed and approved by the CEO. None of these actions require council approval today. Are there any questions before I move on? All right. Many of the CEO members' original terms are coming to a close on December 31st. And while most members have shown interest in continuing their service, one member has stated that she's ready to step aside and let a new voice join the committee. Ling Yu, or Miko Patty, has served on the CEO since January of 2017. And while you may not have had the chance to meet her, you'll be glad to know she has been a longtime friend of CPE and is able to join us this morning. Good morning, Miko. A proposed resolution thanking Ms. Patty for her service has been included in the board materials. It states, and I'll read this. It's very enlightening how much Miko has done. Whereas Miko Patty served as a member of the Committee on Equal Opportunity from January 1, 2017 through December 31st, 2020, and through her service and vision, progressed diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in the Commonwealth's public post-secondary institutions. And whereas, prior to serving on the Committee of Equal Opportunities, Miko had a distinguished career at the CPE, serving as founding director of the Kentucky Virtual Library, Chief Information Officer for Kentucky Virtual University and Senior Advisor for Information and Technology. And whereas she led the development of the Kentucky Internet 2 initiative to integrate real-time, interactive, and collaborative applications into the P20 teaching and learning environments, earning the Best of Kentucky Most Innovative Use of Technology Award. And whereas Miko also led the development of the Kentucky Learning Depot, a single point of entry repository of high-quality digital content aligned with standards and competencies for educators and learners in Kentucky. And whereas earlier in her career at the University of Kentucky Libraries, Miko served as statewide services librarian, assistant director for technical services, and head of cataloging, and in other roles at Eastern EKU and KSU. Whereas her efforts resulted in the Kentucky Virtual Library named the 2001 Outstanding Library Program of the Southeast for the Multi-Type Library Cooperative Award by Solnet. And she received the Distinguished Alumna Award from UK's School of Library and Information Science and Information Science Library Association, and the Academic Librarian of the Year by the Academic Library Section, Kentucky Library Association. And whereas Miko has contributed her talents, leadership, and unwavering commitment to level the playing field for all Kentuckians in numerous capacities throughout her career, and she has been a valued staff member, friend, and partner of the Council of Postsecondary Education, and a passionate advocate for higher education. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council on Postsecondary Education does hereby adopt this resolution on November 13th, 2020, for Ling Yu W. Miko Patty, thanking her for her dedication and service and wishing her good fortune in her future endeavors. Chair Branstetter?
Thank you, Dr. Stat. On behalf of the Committee on Equal Opportunities, Dr. Stat has presented a resolution for Ms. Miko Patty. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move.
A motion by Ms. Harper.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Ferris. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Miko, thank you for your service, and I appreciate Dr. Stat reading through that whole history of everything that you've done. Is there anything that you'd like to address with the council this morning?
Yes, just a few words of gratitude, because I was given an opportunity to collaborate with people from the whole state of Kentucky, and and I also want to comment on Bob's leadership for the CEO committee. I've enjoyed it, and I think it is very important for all of us to work together, because we could do anything if all of us work together. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Miko.
much.
Chair Branstetter, can I add one little point here? I've known Miko for a long time, Miko. I mean, the level of knowledge and professionalism that you bring to the table in any organization is phenomenal. Having you at CPE all those years and in a variety of roles, and now with the CEO, I will tell you, unless people have had the chance to work with you, they would have no idea truly the depth of knowledge that you bring to the table, not just in library science, but in the way that Kentucky needs to operate and how you're willing to be a part of that solution. So just as a friend, as well as a colleague, I want to thank you for the time you spent at CPE and the time you spent in Kentucky as a whole in higher education. We will surely miss you. I have a feeling you won't be disappearing. You just may be taking a break from some of this kind of work, but I'll look forward to seeing you at another time. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
And-
Dr. Thompson.
And can I just say, Miko, the critical thinking you display in our CEO meetings is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, Dr. Staff, thank you for the update on CEO. You guys have been very busy the last couple of months, and it's good to see some progress being made on that front. Next item is agency updates, and we've got two informational reports from staff. The first will come from CP's Data Research and Advanced Analytics team, who will brief us on 2019 to 2020 degrees and credentials conferred. This is perhaps the most important key performance indicator that we work to influence at the state level. It drives achievement of the Kentucky 60 by 30 educational attainment goal. It also influences distribution of state funding through the performance funding model. As we've done in the past, we will reserve January's meeting for a more in-depth review of performance on all of our KPIs and invite the campus presidents to join us to discuss their progress in key areas aligned with the strategic agenda. For now, I'll turn it over to Dr. Mahan to talk about the 1920 degrees conferred.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome aboard new board members. As Chair Branstad said, the November meeting is where we assess our 60 by 30 progress from the count of 2019-20 degrees and other credentials. Next slide, please. So I think most everyone on the board, even the new board members, are familiar with our 60 by 30, the Kentucky's big educational goal. And right now we sit at 49.1% on our way towards our goal number of 60% by 2030. And that is the national average. To meet that national average, we would have 60% of Kentuckians at working age with a post-secondary credential of any kind, starting with a short-term workforce certificate to associate baccalaureate degrees and higher. Next slide, please. So why is this important? Our Chief of Staff, Ms. Lee Nimitz, put this together, and I think it's as important of a slide as any of the ones that we're going to cover today. So we know that the jobs of the future are going to require additional workforce training, additional skills and development of character and education and content and the like. But we don't know exactly what these jobs are going to look like. And so we must be super nimble in our attempt to fill this workforce gaps, and even more importantly, for the benefit of Kentucky residents that so need these job opportunities to begin earning a sustainable wage. And so you see in all of these bullets that it's really not about just that overall volume question, which is certainly something important that we're keeping a close eye on, but it's really that we are specific enough to meet the workforce demand in terms of the skills that we're developing and the content knowledge that we're developing. And so we're looking at things like degree level and academic programs to see if they're in alignment with that workforce need and giving the best opportunities for our Kentucky residents. Next slide, please. So many of you guys have seen this slide, and you know that we are closing this gap with Kentucky's attainment there at the bottom horizontal line graph to the top, which is the national. And so we're only 2 percentage points away from that national number. And what I'm going to show you on subsequent slides is that much of this growth has been because of our progress in these short-term workforce certificates that have grown mostly at KCTCS. And so we're very proud of this, what we call education to work alignment, and the progress we're made. Next slide. But it's also critically important that we talk about the bigger picture and not just those certificates, those short-term certificates, but attainment at the associate degree level and higher. And so this is the breakdown by race ethnicity, comparing Kentucky to the national. with the associate degree and higher. And so this is where we really need to continue to focus, to know that we are below the national average by 7 percentage points instead of that 2 percentage points when we count certificates. And then even bigger cause for concern is some of the gaps that exist. So you see our white-black gap is about 9 percentage points there, which looks pretty healthy, but much of that is around a low attainment level for our white citizens, which is 12.2 percentage points below the national average. And so there's much work to be done, and there's much progress to report on this front, but we want to lead with this so you really know what our challenge is. Next slide, please. So not only does attainment vary by race and ethnicity, it also varies by geography. So you see on the eastern side of the state, the Wolf County, the Laurel counties are very low in attainment, right around that 20% at the associate level or higher. And then you see in eastern Louisville, Oldham County above 50%. So we know that it's not just about race, ethnicity, it's also about the communities, the urban versus rural divide in our state. Next slide, please. So as we probe even deeper at the associate level or higher, that rolls up into one, very convenient metric. But as we look at the baccalaureate attainment level and the graduate and professional degree attainment, comparing Kentucky to the national there on top, you can see in the arrows that it's really not about the associate degree level, it's about the baccalaureate level, and it's about the graduate and professional degree level. And that's where our attainment goal needs to continue to be our focus. And so we've made progress towards the number of baccalaureate holders in terms of annual degree production. But now we need to make continued progress in retaining those folks and even attracting out-of-state, baccalaureate and higher residents to Kentucky for job opportunities. Next slide, please. So this is our overarching kind of summative slide, if you will, on are we making progress towards our 60 by 30 attainment goal? You can see there in green that we highlight the 1.7% average annual growth rate that is needed to continue to stay on pace to meet the 2030 goal. And for the 5 years that we have, since we've implemented the plan, we have met this number. You can see in the 2019-20, our average annual growth rate was 3.29%. And that's comparing the number of completers, unduplicated completers in the state of Kentucky in 1920 to 1819. And so the 43,567 completers, we are continuing to stay on pace with the need for the growth to meet that attainment goal. Next slide, please. So as we drill down and we talk about credential level in the yearly production of credentials, you can see that the certificates and diplomas there on the far left side, where we look at the 1 year growth and the 5 year growth, has absolutely exploded. And this is much about KCTCS, but even our 4-year publics and our private 4-year institutions have begin to confer short-term certificates. And so there in that green bar, as you go from just over 9,000 in 14-15 to over 14,000 in 19-20, you can really see that growth. But we also want to highlight the growth in baccalaureate degrees, certainly something that we've talked a good bit about. You can see almost 10% over 5 years. If you go back another couple of years and you focus on just the 4-year publics, our performance funding work group will tell you that, we're showing over 17% growth with baccalaureate, and also over a 30% growth in our URM baccalaureate. So there is much good news to report on this slide. Next slide, please. We can't talk about degree and other credential production without talking about enrollment. And so if you look there at the top on the green bar, that's called FTE, full-time equivalency. So we merge full-time students with a calculation for part-time students, and we get an overall metric that represents the entire student body. So for KCTCS, you can see that, you know, we've gone from about 49,000, almost 50,000 in 14-15 to 43,000 in 19-20. So you're talking about a 15% drop in enrollment over this time period. Meanwhile, the students awarded there at the bottom line has gone from about 15,000 to closer to 20,000. So you really get a sense for, you know, the fact that there's less students coming in, but more students going out. And that means our graduation rates and our completion rates are improving. So certainly good news to report. Next slide, please. Similar trends on the public university side. And so you see there at the bottom, you see about 17,000 baccalaureate degrees completed in 2014-15, moving closer to 20,000 this current year in 2019-20. What's important to understand in this slide is that we have to take a look back 4 years prior to get the equivalent enrollment versus the number of baccalaureate degrees completed, because it's a 4-year program. So it's important to think about in terms of what we call headwinds, the enrollment and continuing to make progress in our number of baccalaureate completers, is that in fall of 16, there's 87,256 full-time equivalency in our public universities. So if we push that forward to fall of 19, from that 19-20 mark there, you see we're down to about 80,000. It's not represented on this slide, but again, we're looking at about a 10% decrease for public university enrollment. So it's really important for the council to know that all of this progress is made because more students are being shepherded, shall we say, and more students supported to reach completion in spite of continuous drops in enrollment. Next slide. So we drill down a little bit further, and so these are the last couple of slides, if you will, and I know I've put a lot of information in front of you, but we really want to make sure you understand some of these subgroups within the bigger population. So these targets were set by KCTCS through our strategic agenda, and you can see all three of these targets have been met. And so, you know, really a good news slide. Low income enrollment has decreased 30% over this time period for KCTCS, yet they continue to confer low income degrees above their target of 22,139. That's very important for KCTCS because about 2/3 of their enrollment is low income students. And so we keep a really close eye on that. We also keep a close eye on the URM, the students of color, and you can see tremendous growth there and the target being met, as well as the STEM H, because we know those are directly related to workforce demand. Next slide. So this is statewide. This isn't just the 4-year public. This is both the 4-year privates and the 4-year publics. And you can see 2 of the 3 subgroups, the targets have been met, and that's URM and STEM H. We set a very high bar for the baccalaureate number. This is not the number that we need to get to by 2030, but the number we need to get to by 2021, which is the end of this strategic agenda. And you can see much progress, as we noted, on the baccalaureate side, but we're still striving for a higher number for the target by 2021. And just for point of reference, to meet the the attainment goal of 2030, we need to be up around 28,000 baccalaureate completers per year to stay on the trajectory to meet that attainment goal. Next slide, please. And then finally, we look at IQ. These are our private colleges and universities, not-for-profits in the state of Kentucky. And so we see a flattening of the number of baccalaureate degrees conferred. They did receive some positive enrollment news this year with about a 4% increase in undergraduate degree seeking students. So we are keeping a close eye on this as well and hoping that that baccalaureate number can continue to increase above that 5,000 mark. But you see there has been an increase in the number of URM baccalaureates conferred, as well as STEM 8. So there's progress being made. Next slide, please. The big boom for the IQ has been the production of graduate and professional degrees. And so you can see from about 3,000 in 15-16 to over 8,000 in 19-20. Much of this is about the online degree offering of computer science, a master's degree in computer science. We also show notable increase in the statewide numbers, which includes our Kentucky public universities. They have seen increases in their health graduate degrees, mostly around the MSN program, the Master's in Nursing. So both of these sectors have increased their graduate degrees, which is really an improvement since we looked at this about 5 years ago, and there was much alarm for the number of graduate degrees conferred and what was going to be the plans moving forward. Next slide, please. So I put a lot of information in front of you, and oftentimes I'll get the question from my constituents. They'll say, Dave, we need to boil all this down and tell us, what needs to be done and what the data is really guiding us to do. And so the best way to do this is to connect it with the actual policy. And so the reasons that we have made such great stride are, much of the council's work around, that first bullet, that alignment of education to work. Sometimes they call it education to work agenda, but being super flexible and nimble to meet those workforce needs, in terms of program approval and program evaluation to fine tune those short-term credentials, those short-term certificates specifically, is the reason that we've made so much progress. And one of the research projects that we're working on this year is to understand the kind of metrics around these short-term certificates so we can see which ones have made the most difference in terms of individual families in the state of Kentucky. So stay tuned for that. The second bullet there is, and Dr. Bill Payne has really told the story to the performance funding work group that we've made so much progress in baccalaureate degree production. There's been so much focus on student success under President Thompson's leadership. And again, this is in spite of big enrollment declines. The third one there is we're super proud of President Thompson's leadership, Travis Powell and Don Offit and the rest, to implement diversity plans that hold great assessment value and great value in terms of accountability for getting more of our students of color and our low-income students to complete their credential and get gainful employment and sustainable wages. And so we're super excited about the growth in URM production specifically. You can see, 15, 20, in some cases over 30% increase in URM degrees across the board and several different metrics. But then the final bullet is a little more sobering because we know—
David, let me interrupt you there. You didn't put the slide up. I was hoping you would, but let me just jump in on that third one. If you had that chart to show them, what you would see over the last 5 years, we've increased overall our degrees and credentials up about 17%. You'll correct me on these numbers, David, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, but over in our URM, we're up 37%. And outpacing the rest of the states in the nation in that gap closing area. So I mean, I wish I'll send that slide to you if you haven't seen it. It really is one that's getting a lot of national attention, and people are asking what strategies we're using, how are we doing that, and so on. So I did just kind of want to throw that in and not skip too quickly over that one point, which is a really hard metric to move, extremely hard. And in the past, we haven't moved it. So, and in the last 2 years, you'll see a significant gap closing process that we put in place that's getting results. Sorry, David, I didn't mean to disturb you. I just wanted to give the council.
No, that's perfect. And what I should say is, with that third bullet, so the enrollment for our underrepresented minority group and our low income underrepresented minority group has flattened and declined. And so that tremendous growth that President Thompson says of 37%, that's a baccalaureate over the last 7 years, which we showed at the performance funding work group. And I can tell you that that is nothing short of remarkable, given that there's fewer students in the pipeline and more students completing. And so, as President Thompson said, that's a national benchmark for us. I think it's also fair to say that as we look at this, we should look at graduation rates of our URM students. And so in your packet is a scorecard that Chair Ben Branstetter has suggested that we keep in your packet and up to date for all of these meetings. But you'll look and you'll see that as President Thompson said, those gap closings and graduation rates are the reason that we've made this progress. And so we're super proud of that. And it's a laser focus from these campus diversity plans. And so finally, I'll finish it and I'll turn it over to President Thompson and questions. But this is a good segue as we begin to talk about the Kentucky Work Ready Scholarship and our work towards adult enrollment and adult credentials that, we don't have an improvement to report on that side. And so to meet the 60 by 30, it's not going to be enough just to get our traditional aid students going to college at higher rates and completing at higher rates, because we are really moving the needle there. But as far as just the mathematics behind it, and Chair Ben Branstetter and I talked about this in the prep meeting, it's not, we're not able to calculate a path where we would meet the 60 by 30 without enrolling more adults. And so I can tell you that post 2008 recession, over 50,000 adults enrolled in the state of Kentucky. Now we're closer to 30,000. And so with that 40% decline, we are in a place where we're not able to get enough folks through the completion cycle and into the workforce to meet that 60 by 30 and meet those workforce needs. And so that's certainly going to be our laser focus, in addition to all the other activities. So final slide there, Heather. I won't go through this bullet by bullet, but we just want to give you a heads up what's upcoming. As Chair Branstetter said, the next meeting will in fact be the presentations from the presidents, and we'll have the updated accountability or progress report, that second bullet. But we also have some research topics that are very much focused on President Thompson's agenda and his 4 priorities. And so we want to make sure that you not only read these, but you help us disseminate. We always say if there's going to be a win, then the win is when you guys present these topics to your constituents and your folks in your region, and talk to them in informed ways from the data. So I'll stop there and I'll turn it over to President Thompson to see if he has any additional comments and we can entertain questions.
Thanks, David. Great job. I want to really thank David and his team for, we're analytical driven. We're data driven, and we just don't use data just to have data, just to be clear. We use data to really inform the directions we go, the strategies we use, helping our campuses to really drill it down to the most minute level to see what impacts, what inputs they can have to have impact. So, we're happy for any of you to go in as great a depth as you want to go into it on that. I know in these meetings, we try to get through things quickly and we try to give you a lot of information in your booklet. Hopefully everybody's really reading it deeply. There's a lot of stuff to look at. There's a lot of things to celebrate in this, folks. I understand we have a long way to go and we don't celebrate for very long, but I will take a few things and say that we have. If you look at how we're closing in on the national average, still a long way to go. National average isn't good enough. That's not our point, but long way to go. When we looked at what was needed in the workforce for those areas that needed people immediately, we doubled down, worked with the last administration very well to focus on that, working with this administration to focus on that. And we did produce, still more to produce, but we went in that direction. But we tried to do it without leaving anybody behind. We tried to do it without really saying that we're just going to unilaterally focus on the short-term work credentials. We also wanted to do it in our baccalaureate areas and our post-bac areas. So what are analytics telling us? Well, we have an issue with enrollment in Kentucky, bottom line. We're going to have to figure out how to do that. That's what we're doing with the P20 strategy. We're going to look at it deeply, how we can really hone in at cost. I mean, we're not in charge of P12, but we do have a lot of stuff we can work with P12 and get out of our silos to get there. We got a lot to do on increasing more baccalaureate attainment. We've got to figure out how to get KCTCS's enrollment up. We had a 40% decrease in adult learners. We can't make it without doing that. So we're strategically targeting that, as you'll see here in a minute when Melissa comes up. That's only one example. We had many, but we thought we'd share one with you today. So I guess I just want to tell you, we use these data and analytics just as giving us a continuous improvement baseline. We don't just report these to you just so you can have them. I mean, from our staff and from our work, we want to make sure that we continually work with all of our constituency to make that happen. As you all know, this coming session, if you haven't seen the, I think the House increased Republican numbers, and so did the Senate overall. This is a short 30-day session. It takes about 60% supermajority to get any sort of like tax resolution passed. But we're going to be working with those folks too to help us to really do the things that we need to do to keep this agenda moving. I will say one of the things that I feel as if we haven't done as good of a job, and we're trying to double down on that, is our low income. Now, low income is really a large number in Kentucky, but as an Appalachian, I'm telling you that it's important for us to figure out how to target in on this, not just from an income status viewpoint, but also from a geographic viewpoint. We can't, we have to serve everybody in the state. We're working with our workforce cabinet or labor department. We're working with economic development at levels we've never worked with them before to see how we can, coordinate all of these items in such a way that we ultimately get to where we need to and have more Kentuckians ready for work. As I said earlier, not just with those technical skills, but with those employability skills that they know how. So we're bringing employers in on the front end like we've never brought in before, making sure that we're working in our P20 effort that either in high school or college, everybody has a work-based learning experience and so on. So there's a whole lot of items that we're not even coming close to covering today that I would just want the board to be familiar with, to be aware of. As I said, we try to give it to you in writing, but sometimes we probably aren't as clear as we need to. And I would hope if you want more information, David only just did a little dab of what we got, of what we have. So if there's a reason or a need to dig deeper into it, we have now the way we do it. Once again, give David and his crew some credit here. We can drill down as deep as you want to. You can drill down as deep as you want to with the access now we have on with transparency. So just to let you know, I know Ron Bill's not here today. He wanted to, he said after listening to her, well, what are you going to do with it once you listen? Well, we are addressing every single one of those things we heard with a set of strategies. We're getting results on those. We got yet to get results. We'll see. But I just kind of want to take this opportunity to, just to let you know those things. So we're not using data just for that itself. We're using it to really drive the kind of agenda that's set forth by this board. Thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, David. Like Aaron said, I think David, you did just kind of scratch the surface on the data that is available out there to all of us. Are there any? I do want to open the forum for any questions or comments from council members at this point in time. If you have any questions for David.
Eric Ferris has his hand raised.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. I thought it was interesting that Eastern Kentucky has such a low rate of enrollment. And one of the most interesting business announcements I've seen of late, and we've all seen, I think, is this App Harvest project. And I'm just curious, I see they have jobs posted in Moorhead, a lot in Lexington too, but I know they've got another project in Berea. Is that one of the places that has been contacted, one of the businesses to talk about partnering? And how does that work from our role versus the university's role and so forth when you see those kinds of opportunities?
That's an excellent question. We are working with App Harvest. What we know that there's several items we need to work on, 3 big items. One is, we have a lot of aerospace stuff in Kentucky, and we're working with those, whether it's what we're doing with our flight stuff at EKU to our SpaceX work from Moorhead. That's a huge area that we are working on to even increase the likelihood of success in Eastern Kentucky and throughout the state. As we look at agritech, which is like the second big opportunity we have, the governor put me on a board with several other folks, university people, as well as people like in the agritech industry with our universities and colleges to work on that. So those are the other big items that we have an opportunity truly to develop. And we have a lot of other opportunities that we need to look at, even our workforce agenda items and our work ready scholarships targeting, not just those big 5 areas. We may have to change a few of those areas. So what we're doing is we're laser focusing on all those opportunities, and COVID has given us some information how we can take this way of thinking through the digital process and understand the digital divide, once again, has to close more in some of these areas, but how we can really create this new economy, if you will, by working with industries like this, as well as other industries that will focus on that. So a lot more to this, Eric, but your question is a very apropos question. The answer is yes. As a matter of fact, universities are key to these successes. I mean, because they have to work with research like they're doing UK, Murray, and other places around this agri-tech issue to really, KSU, that really will create the dynamic, if you will, to make this happen. The item that we haven't talked a lot about that I hope one of these days we'll get a chance to is the way that we are now focused on our campuses with our programs, as CP has pushed this heavily around building entrepreneurs, because we know that this is also another way that we need to build this. Since the Great Recession of 2009 has told us a lot of things that we are constantly trying to put in place to direct ourselves toward this new economy that's going to have to happen. So long answer to a short question, but it was only a snippet of really all the pieces that we can talk to you about in that area.
May I add something as well?
Yes.
With the P20 efforts, this is a perfect example. Mr. Ferris, App Harvest actually targeted high schools first by bringing in their big, they bring in like the big containers, and we got to go and tour those. They had them in Pike County, and they were training the students, the high school students, to grow different spices and herbs and lettuce. And then as long as they could not compete with their farmers market, but they were also learning how to sell. And they were doing that to build out community capacity in Eastern Kentucky. And this was while they were building the big facility in Moorhead, with the intention of really focus, as Dr. Thompson said, around college students, but really to target high school students before, to give them opportunities within their own community, because they see Eastern Kentucky as such a rich place actually to distribute food. And so to your point, I think it just shows another reason why we have to target our P20 efforts with early post-secondary experiences, because there are career pathways around agriculture that absolutely aligns with this, and even with the articulation of credit or agreements that we're working on now from high school into the universities for students to earn college equivalent credit for the experiences or the pathways that they complete that would drive them into different careers, specifically focused at Eastern Kentucky. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's so incredibly impressive what they can do. They learn all about pH levels. They learn about all the different types of, honestly, chemistry that goes into growth. And so I just that I've got to experience some of that. I think it's an excellent example, and why we have to team up with KDE and the Career Technical Education and KWIBs to really push these efforts, that it can't be CPE alone. And as Dr. Thompson has said, which is why he's pushed this, because it's an ongoing effort. So thank you for letting me share that.
And Dr. Jay Morgan, president of Moorhead, has sent me a note to let you know that he is currently meeting with them, and as of now, like 3 times in the last little bit. So yes, it is very much, we're very much engaged with them and other industry leaders like those folks.
Thanks, guys. Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate this conversation. Kind of a takeoff of Eric's question about the low higher ed pursuit in Eastern Kentucky. I'm wondering if we have an idea of what's going on with our young people, high school grads, that are keeping them from pursuing higher ed. What are the obstacles, or maybe what's the mindset going on there? If we dug into that, and I guess I'll pivot back to David, and I appreciate your numbers you shared, David. But have we dug down at even a deeper level to try to get into the minds, or try to figure out what our young people are thinking that are keeping them from pursuing that certificate or community college or 4-year degree? Do we know what's going on with them at all? Any idea?
David, I'll let you answer this afterwards. What an excellent question. I've spent a lot of time, as you all know, in all of our areas of Kentucky, but especially Eastern Kentucky. And what we find out is that many don't feel college is for them. We found that out in our listening tour. We found it out in other places. As a matter of fact, I'm not bragging, but in my hometown of Clay County, they started a new foundation and named it after me, and I feel blessed for that, to address just those issues. But what we're finding out is that they see college as, in many ways, like the first immigrant experience that many came here before looked at. So that's one. Number 2 is many don't believe they can afford to go to college. Number 2. Number 3 is it takes a lot of direct inputs when you look at the success of what's happening once they get in college. In some cases, we'll see some counties with higher college going rates than we do in other counties throughout the state. But when we look at the success of those students, they drop out faster. So many of our campuses now have started what they call promise scholarships, whereby that if you got Pell, if you got CAP, whatever, they'll pay for the rest of it if you get to a certain threshold. Now we got Eastern's doing it, Murray, Moorhead, UK, everybody's doing it. So we have a lot of information, by the way. So and it falls in 4, I won't take up her time today, but 4 big categories that goes from the personal to the financial to the academic and to the social, cultural, and emotional elements that we've looked at to define in those areas about college going as well as college success. So we're targeting each of those specifically to demographic areas, whether it's geographic, whether it's race, whether it's even gender, males, and all those areas to focus on that. So yes, we're getting a lot of information from those, and we're collecting this with our colleges and universities too, to figure out what we can do. We found out, as an example, during this time that the digital divide was greater. So we're worried about what's going to happen in enrollment with those students this coming spring. So that's once again, it's what I said earlier, we're working on. We're not just saying we're working on, we're actually doing it, put in strategies to combat that early. So we found out it takes a lot of input, in many cases face-to-face input. And we think this is going to have a problem because many are not getting what they need. The students are telling us this with my advisory group. They are feeling they need more face-to-face hand-holding in many cases from their advisors, from faculty and other people to get them to understand exactly the processes that they need to get. So this digital divide, and digital divide is not just those that don't have internet, it's those that may not have enough upload and download speed to do the work, or those that may not fully understand the kind of interaction they need from faculty through that digital process to get what they need. So anyway, there's a lot more to that. The quick answer is yes, sir, we have good information in that area.
All right. Any other questions? I'm going to kind of, please raise your hand or use the hand function. And Heather, let me know if I missed anybody. But and I just want to add a couple comments on with David. When I got on the council, 4 or 5 years ago, we had been talking about the progress to our strategic plan, and we made some modifications to it, pushed it out to be 60 by 30. And I'll credit Joe Papalia for having us look at it on the trajectory of where we need to be. And while I think we need to celebrate the success of where we are versus that line, that's definitely a good thing. We also need to be prepared and understand what some of those headwinds are. Richard, you brought some of those up as well. Enrollment, the need for out-of-state students, and just the basic demographics that we have. So, the potential is there, and we just need to make sure we maintain the momentum to get there. And I think understanding all this data, reviewing it on a regular basis is extremely important, so we don't lose sight of that. And I appreciate David for putting that together in a mechanism and in a forum that we can all understand. So look forward to many more and continued sessions with you on this. All right, the last report that we have is from Melissa Young, who's going to talk about CP's work to improve college going of adult learners and the new Work Ready Scholarship Awareness campaign that CPE has led in partnership with KCTCS, the Education and Workforce Development Cabinet, and the Higher Education Assistance Authority. Melissa, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm trying to start my video, Heather, but it says that I can't because the host stopped it. Okay, here we go. Good morning. It is my pleasure to provide an update today on a radio and social media campaign that we are running to promote adults to take advantage of the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship. And if you aren't familiar with this scholarship, it's a last dollar scholarship that pays tuition for certificates and applied associate degrees at KCTCS and a few other schools that are participating in high demand industry sectors. And those are advanced manufacturing, healthcare, business, IT, construction, and transportation logistics. Next slide. So this campaign, which launched on Monday, and actually we were pleased that the governor featured it in his daily press conference as part of the 4 at 4. But it was the last big project in our Kentucky Adult Promise Grant. And this is a grant that we received in fall 2018. It was $400,000 from Lumina Foundation. I think some of the big activities that we did are listed here on this PowerPoint. We had $60,000 that we awarded to 3 KCTCS campuses, Hazard, Jefferson, and Madisonville, as you see on the map. We were trying to get geographical distribution there, and also thinking about the different audiences that we have, from rural to urban to sort of metropolitan. One of the big key activities that all 3 of these campuses did was to pilot an ambassador program. And this was done in partnership with the Graduate Network, which is a group out of Philadelphia. They have an office in Louisville, Kentucky, and they worked with Tennessee in their Reconnect effort to do a similar program. And basically what an ambassador program is it's a grassroots volunteer effort to spread the word about why it's important for adults to go back to school. So basically we provided them with calling cards, with PowerPoint templates, with speeches, with promotional materials, t-shirts, banners, so they could go out in the community and really talk to the people that they work with, that they go to school with, that they go to church with, that their parents with, at their kids' schools, and say, hey, there's a scholarship available if you have never had any college experience or a credential and you're interested in going back. And, you know, we found even if they weren't eligible for the scholarship or it wasn't what they wanted to do, we still led a lot of people to come back and talk to their KCTCS campus about going back to school. And this is an item, this is an activity that we hope will replicate now statewide. We've learned some lessons from our pilot. We're putting together a toolkit to help other campuses who are interested in this approach to launch that. So that was a large part of the grant. We also had, as many of you all may remember, in February, a very large adult learner convening. We had over 200 people come. I think that was very good in raising awareness of just how important this issue is for Kentucky. And finally, like I said, about $100,000 of our budget, a little over $100,000, is going for this radio and social media campaign. And I will say that KCTCS has been our primary partner in this, since they have probably 98% of the eligible programs for the scholarship. And they have actually put in about $350,000 of their own money. And their campuses so far are spending about $150,000 to promote this through billboards, through print materials, etc. So next slide, please. I wanted to show you just a screenshot of the campaign website. This was part of the materials that we developed for this campaign. Essentially, what happens is we have a 30-second radio spot, a 60-second radio spot. We also have a long-form video that we're featuring on this website and our Facebook pages, which will play at the end of this presentation. But this is the landing page for anyone who's interested in the scholarship. When they hear the spot, it directs them to either call our hotline, which is 833-711-WORKS, WRKS, or to go to the website for more information. The person you see on your screen here is B. Still, Buffalo Still. His real name is Brian Scott. He's the front man for the rap group Nappy Roots. They're out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. They were really popular in the early 2000s, but they still are recording their Grammy-winning rap ensemble. The reason that we are featuring Be Still is that he was good enough to be our campaign ambassador. He went back to school last year. He had left Western Kentucky University in the early 2000s when his recording career took off. And he decided that, I'm going to go back and get my degree. So he went and got his degree last year from U of L in organizational leadership. He feels very passionate about adults going back to school. He's a great spokesperson for our campaign. So anyway, if an adult hears the spot, they can call the hotline. It's staffed from 9 to 9, or they can come on the website. There's a chat function, as you can see there. They can chat with a representative, or they can fill out an intake form where it says request information. And I will say, when Governor Beshear featured this on Monday at 4:00, we had over 100 intake forms from this website. It just blew up. And for those of you, I don't know if you will hear our ads because we are trying to place them with our target audience, and most of you are not in our target audience. But if you do listen to Spotify, you're very, very likely to hear it. I've heard already that people who listen to Spotify have heard it multiple times. It's also on Pandora Radio. And like I said, it's with Facebook, which we found is very popular among our target population. Next slide. So here are our partners in this effort. We have worked really hard with all of these people throughout this grant. So I can't say enough about the help we've received from our partners. I will say that the Kentucky Lottery has been very supportive and has pledged to provide some of their own advertising dollars to push this campaign. They're going out on radio interviews and talking about it. So we're very, very excited about that since they do have a fairly large advertising budget. And finally, I think we just wanted to end this with the long form video, which, like I said, is featured on the website and also on our Facebook advertising. So Heather, if you could play the video.
Yeah.
Keep hitting the button. That's enough. Let me try one more time.
Yeah. It's your man Buffalo Steel from the world famous Snappy Roots, and I got a message for you. Never underestimate you. Never underestimate you. Never underestimate you. Never.
Graduated high school at 17, went straight to college, and I get a phone call with Atlantic Records. It's like, we want to sign you guys. And so I told my mother, I said, this is what I've always wanted to do, music-wise. She made me promise her to, if I went off and followed my dreams, that I was gonna go back to school and get my degree at some point. And so, yeah, so I went off and, Nappy Roots was born.
Still okay. I went back to school, that's right, and I got my degree. It's true. You do that for you, I did that for me. It's time to make a change. Learn another trade, earn a better wage. Education pays.
I made good on my promise to my mother. I graduated actually last May, 2019. I started getting into business, and I started a company, and not really having the full education, book-wise. I just kind of needed to know the formula of how to run a successful business. And so I went back to school for organizational leadership.
Let's go. Right now is the time to educate your mind with advisors to help guide you so you don't feel left behind. No, I ain't playing with you. We can get you qualified, and tuition's not an issue. Hey, let's give it a try. So restrictions apply.
I believe that education is the one thing that nobody can take away from you. The Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship pays tuition for Kentuckians who want to earn a degree in a high-demand career field. This whole program is amazing because they offer a lot of different skill sets. So if you want to get into healthcare, if you want to get into manufacturing, and the best thing is, it's free. And you don't have to worry about accumulating a bunch of debt, So I got you. Trust me. I'm hooking you up. This is the hookup.
Never underestimate you. Never.
if I could do it, anybody can do it, actually. You know, I'm rushing to get my assignments in before, you know, it's showtime, you know, so I'm like side stage. Okay, let me finish this last little paragraph out, you know, send it, and then go on and do my show. So, you know, y'all know the number, you know the website. Call them up. Tell them Be Still sent you. I promise you, they'll hook you up.
So that's the video. Does anybody have any questions about the campaign? It should be running through the end of the year, at least, and we're hopeful that we can get some coverage through June of 2021.
So this is Kim. I do have a quick question, and that is, do we have some targets that we're hoping to get from this? I mean, knowing the scholarship, how many students we hope will enroll, or have we set those yet?
You know, we are setting those with KCTCS. Like I said, they have the majority of programs in this. So we are working with KCTCS. Terry Geltner is their marketing director, and we're looking at that. We're also working on you know, trying to smooth the process. When a person calls the hotline, they really get sent to their local college, and they get connected to a person who knows the answers to those questions. So we also worked with our college graduate or project graduate contacts. So if they already have, say, an associate degree, but they want a bachelor's degree, then we have somebody to send them to at a four-year campus. So there, you know, I think we will be working on some targets. It's always a little bit difficult when you're sending a referral to a local college, because they have to really be able to put this in their CRM program, and they need to be able to say, yes, this came in through the campaign, but we are certainly going to work on tracking that.
Kim, let me answer a part of that question. Yes, each of those local campuses and KCTCS as a whole, they do have targets in this area, in all the areas. So I didn't want to leave you with the belief that they don't have targets of adult learners.
They certainly have degree targets. You know, sure. As far as like targets for leads, like I said, I think we are setting those, and we're trying to figure out a way that we get all of those leads captured. Because unless they say, yeah, I heard you.
Story to be able to say, hey, we started this campaign and look at the impact that it's made, that'd be a great success story.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we're working on that. Sometimes, you know, they don't tell us when they come in that they heard the ad. So, but we are working on trying to make sure we capture all of that.
Melissa?
Yes.
Quick question.
And that was one of the items we said with Lumina Foundation when we wrote this grant for this too, by the way.
If I may, I went to the website and I was looking for just some information, you know, tried to click through. One of the things that comes up here at the bottom of the page, it says only available to students finishing program requirements, no new enrollment allowed for 2020-2021 year. So I'm not entirely sure, are students enrolling on a rolling basis? Is there deadlines? Because I just went in and I tried to see what was available, but it doesn't show that there's a way for students to enroll at this point for 2020-2021.
That is a good question. I have not seen that yet, that little function that you're talking about, because like I said, this is mainly for KCTCS and they've created this website, but it is, I think, on a rolling basis, but it does still go by semester, and there is a process. You have to first fill out the FAFSA to see if you're Pell Grant eligible, because it is a last dollar scholarship. So, but we are hopeful that we can at least get the process started, because there's a KCTCS application that you have to do. There's a FAFSA application, and you also have to apply with KIA. So it is a process.
Okay. Yeah, it might be helpful to just lay that out. exactly how they need to enroll. All I did was just look for what programs were available, and what the search results came back showed a lot of programs. I can show you really quick.
Yeah, they're working on that section with the search. I think there is a little bit of learning as we go, because we're realizing that there need to be multiple ways to search, like not just by campus. So they're working on the search function.
Perfect, no problem. I'm gonna just do a quick screenshot and I'll just email it to you guys, so maybe you can bring it back to them.
Please do, because there's several. I turned my camera off. I'm not sure why. Maybe I was trying to turn the other on. I'm technology gifted. But if they're saying there's no new enrollments, I need to really know that, because that's not even feasible. So I need to figure out what that is. Whether it's going through the KIA website or the KCTCS website, because the scholarship itself is administered by KIA. The programs are at KCTCS mainly. So we just want to make sure that those two folks are coordinated to get some of these pieces together. So I appreciate if you would send me that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, I'll definitely follow up on that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. Are there any other comments or questions and on that topic? I appreciate everybody's input on that. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 11 is campus good news reports. Several of the campuses have provided written reports in your materials, so please review those if you have not done so already. Next item is other business. Does anyone have anything additional they would like to address before we adjourn today? Just open the floor to that. All right. Seeing none, I'd like to thank everybody for their participation in our meeting today. We'll meet again on January 28th and 29th for our business meeting and annual performance reports from the campuses. For those that are new, that's going to be I would say, a data inundation, 2 days of that. Kevin looks excited, and so that's a good thing. But I would highly recommend that you spend a little bit of time on our onboard data portal and reviewing information on that prior to the meeting, so that we can have some good informed questions for the university presidents. And I do appreciate those presidents that were able to join us today and observe our meeting as well. Appreciate their time on that. We do hope that can occur. Yes, go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, hey, Chair. I am working on the schedule for the 28th and 29th. Going to try to get that knocked out. Just because of the way the pandemic is, I am planning on this being a virtual meeting. Hopefully we can make it in person, but I'm going to make the schedule with the idea that it's in virtual. So as soon as I get that, I do plan that it will probably be at least a half a day on the 28th. I believe last year we started at 1 and went till like 5, I think, on the first day, and the second day it was kind of this like 8 to noon. So anyhow, I'm going to give everybody a heads up, especially those who have not been a part of that meeting before.
Thanks, Heather. Appreciate that.
I would just say I appreciate your optimism, but as you look at these numbers, I mean, wow. So thank you.
Oh, it's positive, but yes, I'm going to plan for it to be a virtual, unfortunately.
All right, and Heather will be in touch with any new details for the year. And for those who are appointed to committees, that information will be going out, I'm sure, in the next few days as well. And feel free to reach out to anybody else, especially the chairs of those committees, if you'd like to have any discussions on that. Not seeing any other business or commentary. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, motion by Richard. Dr. Stadt, I'll give you the second. And all those in favor, press the leave button on your Zoom call.